elaborate buildings with distinct character, city focal points like parks and markets, streets and alleys conducive to actual adventure. I'm going to show you how to build all that and more. Hi, I'm Nate, and I'm going to give you a builder's masterclass in urban planning. There are so many things you can create when you use our entire City Builder collection, so I put this build together to illustrate just a few of them. So let's dive in and take a look. All right, so this build, which was incredibly fun to put together, is a 4-foot by 2-foot build that showcases our entire City Builder collection. So we have the streets, alleys, sidewalks in here, all of the buildings from our original stone and Tudor to the brand new Tudor Village expansion, Lowtown, dressing from all of the above, our new greenery from the Tudor Village. So it's really fun to just get to use the entire collection here and stole a little bit of dressing from here and there also, but mostly just City Builder bits. And it's maybe more elaborate and more dense than you would do for your standard encounter. I was building this as trying to show as many different building tricks as I could in one build, but you could very well run an encounter on here or several sessions, really. And it was sort of inspired by a little campaign I ran for after school D&D where they had to explore the town and find the cultists, right? Figure out who was going to summon the big bad guy. So if you were going to do that, maybe send your players in. They've got to try and explore. There's tons of different buildings and zones that could all have NPCs. They'd have to go investigate. And the fun thing is, if you drop them in a big old sandbox like this, when the big demon gets summoned at the end, whenever they find the cultist and then trigger the thing, the demon gets summoned, you don't know where they're going to be, and they could be split up. The players could be in different places. It could be a very sort of suboptimal setup for facing the big bad guy when it comes out. So it could become immediately a very exciting combat because they're sort of spread out all over the city, or maybe they're all together. Who knows? You have to play to find out, which is part of the fun. Up front, you'll note this whole thing is raised up on 50 millimeter stilts. So it's battle boards with terrain trays on top on 50 millimeter stilts. And I didn't know exactly where I was going with this build when I started, which is a good lesson to you. You can actually watch, we have the time-lapse, construction process time-lapse video you can watch, sort of see the whole thing happen, hyperlapse speed. But I originally thought I was going to have a 2-inch rise over here, and then I ended up making it a 1-inch rise, so I raised this up by 1, but we could have dropped the whole thing down 25 millimeters. But the moral of the story is you don't have to have it all figured out. Just sort of start building, and the story will hopefully guide you on your way. So let's dive in and look at some techniques here. And we'll start up in this front quadrant. All right, so let's look at this front zone, these 3 buildings here first. So when you're designing for a city, a couple of key things, at least for me, are visual variants, where I want the buildings to feel different, both in geometry and color and texture. So like you can see, for instance, this area, we've got 2 different color roofs, and the back behind here, a 3rd different color roof. So we're trying different color roofs. We're using multiple materials, right? We've got stone and Tudor, and then we're mixing up parquet posts with regular posts to try and give some variance in these buildings, as well as the shapes. So this one's got overhangs, this one's got little bits, and we're trying to have enough variety that it feels city-like, as well as claustrophobia. We're trying to have, for it to feel like city, particularly medieval city, things feel pretty tight. So I'm not using the full-size streets. I'm using all the alleys here, and I'm trying to get the stuff feel pretty tight. But at the same time, giving enough space that you could actually move miniatures around here and have an encounter, right? It's key that you need to be able to get in and move your hands. So if we had 6 buildings in a row like this that had this much of a tight area, it would be too hard to get in here. But because we only have a little bit of overhang here, it gives you the sense of claustrophobia, but you can get in and you can move your minis, and you can actually play in this zone. So looking at this first building here, the couple of techniques I just wanted to show was one. So if we pull this out, we have a pretty plain looking building, right? It's very square. Like one of the things I'm always trying to do is get away from the buildings looking completely square. So what we did to break it up here is This is a 2x2 floor biscuited to another 2x2 floor. So then we can use the narrow walls, and then using the banister corner posts there to hold it up and put a roof on top. So this now breaks up our space, gives an interesting little area, right? If there was a big, the big demon guy comes up and shoots up, there's a spot you could hide under there for cover. It also looks sort of inviting and interesting. And then this front room, you could put some stuff. And we have in here is actually, it's just a little tiny LED light. Syl found these great little tiny LED pods you can get on Amazon super cheap. And it really looks neat if you put them inside your buildings with our window inserts. You just bring a lot of light to it. Right? Can you see that glow? Hard to see with all studio lights, but it brings life to the building through a little light in there. And then beyond that, this is just sort of standard city builder building, aside from using these little tiny floors to trying to break up the squares, right? So everything's just not a 4x4 building. Over here on this building, so this was an example of, I wasn't sure of the identity of this building as I was going into it. So I asked myself, this thing you do, anytime you're sort of stuck on what exactly am I building, ask what's the narrative here? What's the story? Like, what's the driver for this? So I said, okay, this will be a market. It's going to be attached to the market area. So it'll be a merchant of some sort. And like, what's I'm looking at stuff like, oh, let's have it be a smith. So I was like, okay, if this is going to be a smith, that gave me some identity. So the bottom of this building here, we've got the big, it's stone, so it feels stout. And we've got the double doors at street level. And the idea is, okay, this is where you get all your raw materials coming in. Because if this guy's a smith, you need a lot of coal and iron and steel, whatever. All this stuff is coming in. So it would be a spot, an entry point for that. And then I decided on this second story, we did a couple of fun things. So this, it's hard to see here. We'll move it around in a sec. This upper section is a 4x4, so you'll lift it off. All right, so the bottom section is just a standard 2x2, right? And then I built it up against, it's up against the rise here. We're using urban elevation 1-inch rise to cover up the battle board underneath. And that's just built right up against the side there. Then on this second story, you can see it in profile, we've got a 2x4 and a 4x4. So this is 6 inches long. So that means I can put the 6 inches over the 4 inches and I get a 1-inch overhang on either side. I love the feel, that old medieval feel when you've got an overhang. And by only being a 1-inch overhang, it's still playable. Like if you need to get something under there, it's, it's not so much that you can't get under there, but it gives that really neat feeling. And then I decided once I attach this platform, we'll talk about that in a sec, I could slide the whole building this way, like 1/2 inch, right? So it's kind of like cheating. We're off the grid a little bit. But it gave me overhang on this side too to help make this alley feel a little more claustrophobic. So things don't have to be lined up perfectly on the 1-inch all the time. You can always use a tape measure. I do this a lot of times. Maybe it's from playing so much war games though, but you can just always use a tape measure if you're having a hard time with the grid or whatever. But don't be afraid to sort of cheat, knock things off a little bit to help the whole feel. So offset this upper section both directions, so there's overhang every which way. It helps give it, once again, a distinct look and that overhanging feel. And then over here, because he was a smith, and this is sort of supposed to be the merchant, this is the market area, I wanted to have this outdoor platform for him to sell his wares. So I'm using the floral piece here, biscuited to the side of the building with scaffolding, and then using the stairs to get down. And one of these sort of unique challenges, so this becomes a neat, like, first of all, it looks really nice, right? The curve here, echoing the curve in the streets, is like super pleasing to my brain, as well as this then gave me a spot to hang that little shield biscuit insert. But what was interesting is because this building is built in line with the floor, and then this is all lifted up 25 millimeters, it meant this is hanging out. It's a very odd distance because the floors are 3/8 thick and we're raised up 25 millimeters. This distance under here is not one floor's height. So I needed something to help suspend. So this is all biscuited to the side of the building, but I needed something to help hold up this side here, and it's thicker than a floor. So I looked around at the pieces we have and I was like, oh, the barrel is exactly the right size. So we'll pull this thing out. Right, the barrel is exactly the right height. We needed to hold that thing up and give it a little support. So I put 3 barrels. I put one there, one here, and one over there. And those hold this up perfectly. And it's a great reminder that you don't have to use the pieces, quote unquote, right? You can use you can use a barrel as a support piece, or you could turn a floor sideways and use that, or use an insert for something. Like, there's no right way to use the pieces. Like, do whatever you need to do to tell your story, to make the build work. Once the players are in it, they're not going to care if you're using a piece wrong or whatever. Also, in real cities, people do this all the time, right? They use makeshift materials to hold something together. So I showed this build. We previewed it on stream, and the barrel was like the MVP. Everybody got really excited about the little barrel there. So don't be afraid to use your pieces in funny ways, turn them sideways, use them upside down, do whatever you need to tell the right story. So that's the sort of smithy. I don't think there's any other fun. Oh, here's a fun reminder too. The 2x4 roofs, the slate and terracotta, have two sides. So one side is stone, one side is Tudor. So I'm using the Tudor side to make this all feel tied in with a Tudor building here. So that's a tip. If you want to kind of change the way your roofs look, you can swap them around to the other side. Usually want Tudor to Tudor and stone to stone, but you've got building options. All right, I think that's all the key tricks here on the smithy. Let's pull this up and out so you can see that back building. Oh, and when you do overhangs, here's another one. Any of the facade pieces. So this is the corbel row facade, the new Tudor arch facade. They really help if you're doing overhangs. Throwing a facade underneath really helps transition out visually. It just helps it flow up to the overhang area. It just looks really neat. So highly recommend throwing facades in anything that is going to have an overhang. It just helps sell it. All right, so finally for this this building in the back, nothing too unusual for the building. The only sort of fun bit I did here, I didn't biscuit this together. Ooh. So for this area out here, we just use the banister posts to hold this area up. Another way to create some easy variants is to have some open air parts of your building. So these banister posts really set you up for that. You can sort of suspend anything over them. They look really neat. They support it up nicely. It's easy to pop your layers off for play, and it helps give you some visual variety by having open air areas, playable areas under the buildings there. Also, while we're here, for going up one level of elevation, I'm using first of all, I'm using the stairs here as a little pedestrian walkway, but for carts and vehicles and the like, I'm using the ramp from the urban elevation with a alley piece. So this gets you exactly the 25 millimeters up we need to. It connects pretty well there. And the trick on these ones is to get this to sort of stick into the alley is you can bend the alley like that a little bit to open it up. So drop the pieces in while it's open, and then it'll settle back in and it kind of locks them in place, and they'll sit pretty nicely in there. So it's a quick way you can go up with 25 millimeters in height. Cool. It works pretty smoothly. And then I masked on the side with just a pair of stairs and the 1-inch elevation riser. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's go look at this building in the back next. So this back building here, this is like a very ostentatious guild hall. So just kind of maybe has too many decorations, too many accessories. I just went nuts throwing as many things on this as possible, trying to make it really stand out. So the upper section here, this is all just pretty standard building, standard issue dangle room in the back, modular roofs, just lots of decor. So we'll pop these two layers off. Let's start one at a time. The one fun bit is this door lines up here, which is kind of nice. Cross, and same on this side. The door lines up. It's kind of fun on this walkway. But these are just standard, right? We're doing a lot with just standard 4x4s. So pop these two layers off. Okay. All right, so now here's where it starts to get interesting. Oh, so the upper part, so the central thing I was essentially trying to recreate the effect of the Bridge of Valor in Tudor, using a bunch of our new pieces. So this upper part for the roof, we're just using, it's a 2x4 with the half posts and railings to make a nice walkway up there. A really fun spot for some elevated combat or shooting or whatnot. We'll pop that off. And so underneath that, you can sort of see how this bit works. So this is just a 2x4 floor, biscuited in between the two of these, with the new Tudor arch. We got the Tudor arch biscuited on the front and the back to give it that kind of really nice arch shape. And then we're using the Tudor overhang on the front here to give that overhang feeling. We could have put one of those railings in if we wanted to and make it like an open air thing, something like that. Or we could have just put a window wall in there. But I wanted the overhang to kind of just give it, I don't know, feel super medievally to me. It gives you a little more playable space. And then we also put the Oriel window in the back. So once again, open up, instead of having a solid wall here, the Oriel window facade kicks out an extra 3/8 of an inch. So we have just a little more playable space in here. So if you were running minis around here, there's a lot of playable space to work with. Then the fun thing that's happening, so originally I put 4x4s on either side here, and it was cluttering because I wanted the overhang. It was just too tight and you couldn't really appreciate the whole arch. So instead I used, these are the small diagonal walls. We'll pop them out and see if you can see it. Let's see if I can lift it up, show it. So we've got a small diagonal wall on the front with a 2x2 floor behind it, and then a 2x4 on the left. And those are all biscuited together, so you can lift this whole thing as a unit. I did the same thing on either side. So diagonal wall, 2x2, 2x4, diagonal wall, 2x2, 2x4. That also lets us have the little doors here, right? So there's, once again, doors that line up. We're using the corner post fillers in here to decorate this out, make it look nice from the inside. And then putting the Tudor windows in to try and keep it kind of Tudory, even though we've been sort of mixing and matching Tudor and rustic wood here. So then the next layer down, pop this up. So now the layer below, we have a couple of fun things happening. So over here, this is a 2x4 with a pair of 2x2 floors biscuited in. And this is because I wanted corner posts in the middle here. So in order to support that diagonal overhang, I was trying to go from that interesting shape that, what is it, a pentagon, I guess, 5 sides right, got the extra diagonal. Trying to go from that shape back to a square to get the base on a square. So I wanted to have these to line up with the diagonal above. So I needed a corner post in the corner. So I'm using the little banister posts. So I could have just used 2x4s if I didn't want this post here, but it helped just visually kind of tie the thing together and give it a little extra support on the front. Then we're using the railings to kind of tie that off, and the corner railing and stairs here to give us a nice sort of entry point up from the street. And then also gives us a nice inset door, right? There's something really neat with the door. You got this sort of landing and the doors in there. So it's creating a 4x4 using 2 2x2s and a 2x4. And pretty much anytime you want, like if you want a door next to a window, or in this case, like an opening and some banisters and some railings, whatever, you can always patch together a couple of 2x2s or 2x4s to get you those narrow windows if you need them, or narrow doors or whatnot. And then on this side, I thought this was kind of fun. So this is taking it's the large diagonal. I don't know if you can see it. It's there, right? So it's the rustic wood large diagonal, and we're just popping it, trying to turn it into a 4x4 by taking the regular wood diagonal, popping that in, right? And there's a door here. So we're using, even though this is normally kind of the inside portion of the wall, we're using it as an outside, and it makes a nice little landing there. And then that lines up really nicely with the urban elevation, so we can have the stairs going up to that bit. So I thought that was a fun trick of using. It was sort of nesting the small diagonal and the large diagonal together, and then we're using the magnetic part of the large diagonal to get even more bedazzling on here. And then the bottom layer is, this side is just a regular old 4x4. And we're using the facades. Oops, sorry, buddy. We're using the facades here to kind of get the stone to transition up into the wood. And then on this side, we did a fun thing because I really love having the stairs with the door underneath. That sort of visually, that gag is always really appealing to me. So what we did over here is, once again, a 2x4 floor with a 2x2 floor, all biscuited together. One fun gag I did on the back is even though this is a 2x2 and a 2x4, I didn't put the posts in the middle, and you can just use a regular full-size wall, even though you could put in posts if you want to use the narrow walls, but I just wanted to do a full-size wall here. So you can still use full-size walls when you're connecting the 2x2s and the 2x4s and whatnot. And then for that cool sunken door effect over here, we're using the half arches from the urban elevation, boom, with the narrow door, pop the narrow door in there. So we have this cool little inset door, and then we're using the little stone 2-step right there to transition this down to our battle board. So I really like that look of the sort of the door inset. It's not super playable, right? It's hard to get a mini in there and do a thing, but it just kind of looks like a dangerous little nook. It's like that kind of spot that, if there's some trouble or someone could be lurking there, you could say there's a NPC or so, it's a kind of spot that players want to like look out for and spot something on. So even though this is starting with 2 plain old 4x4 footprints, I think the building ends up having a ton of character because we're using a lot of trickery with the diagonals and the 2x2s and the 2x4s and the like. All right, so now we'll put this back together and let's go look at the park zone. All right, let's look at our park here. So this is our first focal point, and the way we're sort of drawing people's eye to this is, once again, leaning into visual variance, right? Color, it's got a whole bunch of color compared to the rest of the city. This is the most colorful area. Also, texture is different because we have all these plants. The shapes are different, the geometry, everything is kind of different. So it'll immediately draw your eye. In addition, if you've got, I don't know if you have lighting at home in your game room, you put a little extra light on a focal point, it'll draw people's attention to it. In this case, we have a little spot on it to help just draw your attention to it. Also, in terms of visual variance, this is very low in comparison to the rest of the buildings, so it helps you draw attention to it, helps create variance from the rest of the city, as well as it becomes very playable, right? Because this is relatively open and low and flat, it's very playable. This whole section, the park and the market are pretty open and playable compared to some of the tight alleys. So once again, having more variance, right? Having a few open areas that breathe make the claustrophobic areas feel even more claustrophobic, makes those alleys feel more dangerous. So the park build itself is just standard negative space building using our the quaint pond terrain tray and the new grassy banks in there. And then the sort of the fun bit is outside. We're using the seawalls, which are now apparently land walls. We're using the seawalls as garden walls. Those are the perfect height, and the sort of the green schmutz on them from the paint for the lower part then ties it right in, makes it feel like they're part of a growing green thing. To sort of help disguise them and green it up, so we're using the pole accessory holes there to pop the flowers in, and then we're putting flower boxes all around, so they really feel like they are part of an ancient garden wall here. Other fun bits are we're using the urban elevation here to connect to these buildings on either side, and it's very satisfying when everything sort of lines up nicely like this. So because this is raised 25 millimeters from the floor that's on, and then these are another 25 millimeters, it gets us exactly up to the right height to get to the second story on both of these buildings. So you have a really nice transition from those buildings down. That's one of the reasons I wanted to go up 25 millimeters with this level, is because then it makes anything that goes from this level up 25 millimeters gets you back onto the 2-inch mark for the stories that are down below. So you can do some really fun kind of staggering with buildings that way. Other fun bits in here. We're using the urban elevation, the 1x1 risers, and the new little cobblestone plinths with the gargoyles to kind of make the entrance area with the new ivy arch there. It makes a very pleasing entry area and kind of just beckons you in, right? Kind of makes you wonder what's waiting inside, especially with all the color in here. And we're putting our little sign to good use too, in case you didn't know it's a garden. It says garden. And then finally, because I always like to have discoveries, things for the players to find in the area. I have a little pile of gear here, and so maybe this is a clue. There's a druid that lives in the park. Maybe they spend all their time wild shaped as a squirrel or a fish and hanging out, but they have their gear in case they need to go out and buy some clothes, buy some food or something, wherever they can throw on their equipment, wherever. So there's another person they could question and get some information about the town as they're trying to sort out the cultist. And beyond that, just sort of putting in as many bits of greenery here, right? Using all this new garden greenery, using our lily pads, using the quilldron tree, really helps make it feel tranquil and serene, kind of hitting a different note from the rest of the city. And to that end, maybe for some dramatic surprise, I'm thinking if we have there's a demon that's trapped in the gem that this cult is trying to summon. The gem's in the bottom of the pond here. So we're going to take the most tranquil area of this whole build and have that be where the bad guy gets summoned. So when the thing goes off, 3/4 of the way through the encounter, you have the demon come bursting up out of the park, and sort of you can then lay waste to this tranquil park. You can have them start smashing the trees, uprooting stuff off their pole accessories, or just sort of destroying the park if you want. So start with the beautiful area and have that be the most violent eruption. It should create some surprise for your players. All right, let's go look at the next focal point, the market from here. All right, so our next zone is the marketplace up here. So this is another focal point. We're drawing people's eye to it with a couple of things. One, we've got some color here, right? We've got the fountain, we've got the planters, we've got the market spalled tops, we've got some different textures because we've got the fabric here, we've got the translucent water for the flowers. And it's the only time in here that we're using the full-blown streets, albeit it's a small little section of them, but everything else is alleys and this is streets. So it's a larger open section of cobblestone, so it's brighter, so that'll help draw your attention. And of course, the fountain will draw your attention there. It's also relatively low, right? The highest thing here is a couple inches out, so it's pretty low in comparison to the rest of these buildings, and open and breathing. So it makes the claustrophobic areas feel tighter by having this big open space. Great, once again, for combat. We've peppered in just enough dressing so that you know what it is, right? So we have the smithy area here with all the weapons and the anvil. We have the fountain with the bucket and the planters. We've got a pair of merchants' stalls, and then we have little stalls and another raised platform a little bit. So it's just enough dressing so that you know what it is, but it's not too much to clutter it up, and there's plenty of room for minis, plenty of room for combat. And should combat arise, we got a couple of raised areas here and over here to make things interesting, as well as lots of potential for NPCs, right? If you're worried about collateral damage and NPCs, like this could be also not only merchants in sort of each of the zones in the stalls, but also you could have, just random townsfolk around and the like. So it could be a kind of a hectic scene when the demon bursts out if they're trying to protect some of the civilians or whatnot, or you imperil some civilians easily to kind of up the stakes. But in terms of the building, it's pretty standard building with the important choices of it's having the big open mosaic plazas, using the bigger streets so there's more open space. But beyond that, it's all pretty standard, with the exception of we did do the both sides here. We're using the floral as a raised platform. I just really like the raised curve. This one's up a full 25 millimeters. It's on the urban elevation under there, which means the 38 millimeter steps can get you down to the ground. And because this is up 25, the 25 millimeter steps go up from this right up to the next floor of the building, so you can have the transition out from the door down to the steps to the platform. So those transitions are always very satisfying to me when you get the steps right to the right height. All right, well, let's look at this building now that we're over here. All right, so this is like a connected twin merchant building. And for visual variants, everything is in rustic wood, so it helps it feel different from the hybrid wood and Tudor building back here and the all Tudor over there. So the fun bits we did here, let's take this roof off first. You gotta pop off the pennants. All right, boop. All right, popping the roofs off here. So the fun bit here is we have this diagonal walkway. So it's something I hadn't actually done when we were designing it, the large diagonal. Like, oh, cool, you can do these walkways. But I haven't actually I don't think I've built on camera a nice diagonal walkway. So I wanted to get that in here. So it's using the scaffolding 2x4 connected between, these are just two of the large diagonals connecting through. It's just a really neat, once again, I like multi-level things where you can put miniatures underneath as well as miniatures on top. It's fun for combat. It looks interesting. It gives you a lot of options for moving around. And then to support that, instead of using more large diagonals beneath, just lift this up because it's all biscuited together. I used the City Builder basics here, just to some quick corners, and then the small diagonals, and those help give a little support to the walkway, as well as making a really nice little walkway zone through here, and centered one of the mosaic, right? It's a mosaic plaza pieces. It would look really nice sort of centered between the two of these. And then we're using 2x2s I wanted to get double windows here and a door here, so it felt like it had a lot of life. And a fun gag you can do, you don't have to have everything be one-to-one size in terms of playability. So for instance, if you wanted players to go into the buildings, this is pretty small to do anything playable. But you could do kind of a thing where outdoors is 1 square is 10 feet, indoors is 1 square is 5 feet, and then just have a build. If players go into the building, then you fly in a build. So this would kind of match that. You have a build standing by, and you say, okay, now this is the inside of the shop. So it's the exact same footprint, the square with a little diving corner, but I just doubled everything in size. And you don't have to go quite as big, but it just gives you enough playable space inside so that if you wanted to have a meaningful interaction here, you could fly it in. And of course, you could always do the DM trick where you fly this in for they go to a different building, you could fly this in as the interior if they went into the wrong building or whatever. And this lets you then have a little bit, right? We have a little back room that has a trap door, and we have an area for the shopkeep, as well as some areas. If they want to do like a shopping thing, you could have them go around the areas, shop or whatever, or have a fight in here. Lots of neat comment. But you don't have to have the inside the exact same size as the outside, especially because with 3D terrain, it takes a little more space to build interiors than it does on grass paper, because the walls have some thickness and the furniture. And by the time you put some dressing in and some minis, the space gets eaten up really quickly. So don't be afraid to sort of enlarge the insides of your building for playability if you need to. Plus, it's sort of fun surprises when the players go in. If you fly out a building interior, they get really excited because they feel like they've discovered something. Fly that out. And so the rest of this is pretty much just basic city building. So let's go look. Oh, I will note, I did build this. So I built this building on top of the floors because I had the diagonals. I wanted to use this, and it gives a little variance in heights, right? So this is building a floor height higher than some of the other ones that are built in line. I like to kind of vary building in line and on top. It just gives a little bit of variance in the tops of the buildings. All right, so let's go look at this noble person's house next. All right, so this is the big noble person's house. It's so big that it spans 2 city blocks, so it was an excuse to have this fun walkway connecting the two over an alley. So starting up at the top here, first fun bit we did is we've got a 2x4 floor in there, so we can break up the silhouette, especially at the skyline, right? Having some narrow bits at the top just feels like always like something dangerous. Trouble is always putting these little tiny rooms up high, especially with a view of the city. So using the 2x4 floor here, let us break up the top silhouette, and it gives a really good spot to put this perch here, this balcony. So this is using the corner railing piece from the scaffolding, and then putting on the little, 1.25 inch railing on there to make a tiny balcony. Great vantage point of the city. And then this is all just biscuited together, so we can lift it up. Oh, and it's got a spot to connect the pennants, so we connect this to the roof from the other building, because it always makes everything look festive. Then underneath, standard building here, but I made the choice to, instead of using 2 4x4s, so the building footprint in this section is 8x8, used a 2x4 again and a 4x4 so that I could offset things by 2 inches and wanted to have this front roof here. So you're breaking up the roof line, having these kind of different angled roofs makes the building just look interesting. It also maybe makes it look like it was built over time. And we're trying to make this one look like it was a big, expensive, fancy house. So they tend to have a lot of interesting roof peaks and the like. However, that caused a little bit of trouble because over here, I wanted to have, this is the big, the private stable carriage parking area for the noble person. And so we're doing the fun gag coming in here where it's the alleys feeding right into the big double door. Somehow that always feels really good to me when it connects, when the roads connect right in and tells you, stuff, carriages are pulling in here. And this is using the new Tudor double high, all very standard. But I wanted the roofs to connect into the side of the building so it feels cohesive, but have the big soffit peak in the front because that looks very sort of expensive and grand. The problem is the regular roofs have an overhang of about 1/4 inch. So that was by design so that it would feel like they were actual roofs because roofs need to extend past the side of your building. So we have a bevel on the corner so you can butt them up at 90 degrees. However, you can't go directly head on because they're going to crash. But what we did here was just put an extra floor. So I could have built the building on top of the sidewalk and left this one in line. That would have worked. But I chose to keep them both in line so the bottoms would line up. And I just put an extra floor in there and to get us up just enough so now we have the clearance that this roof overlaps with that roof. And then it also means this part of the building is slightly higher, so we have an interesting offset, so not everything's lining up perfectly, so we can see a little more of the building. It just ended up, once again, visual variance, right? It just gave a little variety in that building and made it feel a little more interesting, unique, and distinct. We get to see a little more of the Tudor. And then the rest of this is pretty standard building, but I'll show you because we lined up, because we knocked this back up 1 floor height, it lines up really nicely with this walkway area. We could have just put a step in, but I wanted having the floors line up like this is very, very satisfying. Have it sort of flow all the way through. So this walkway, this is really fun. So what we did here. All right, so this starts with a base. So it's our urban elevation half arches, 2 of those biscuited to a 2x2 cobblestone floor with a little gargoyle biscuit insert there. And then, so using that as a base, then we took this is a 2x4 regular wood 2x4 floor with the new Tudor arch facades there, biscuited onto the side of the floor. It's using regular parquet corner posts and then the railing insert there. And then these support the little peak roofs like that. So you get a really neat, fun little walkway. And you could biscuit this anywhere you want. However, by popping it on here, it now becomes freestanding. And so it doesn't matter what it's connecting to. You don't actually now need to biscuit it to anything. You can just build right up against it in this case. So it becomes freestanding. You can pop it anywhere. So good little trick if you need to have some sort of walkway going across. Or you could also seal it up, right? You could put walls on either side and make it a sealed walkway, or you could put a balcony in there or something that we could seal this guy. This might look neat. Right. Then you can do something like that if you wanted to have it be like an area to sort of stand out and overlook the rest of the city. Yeah, lots of options. Boom. And then this lines up really cleanly with the building next door. This building doesn't have anything no crazy building techniques on it, other than we have these narratively out front here. So we have the little freestanding walls we're using to make yards out here. But we put the lion arch there and portcullis, the rusty portcullis from the dungeons. So that becomes hopefully a little narrative. I'll give a player see that. It's like, why the heck is this noble person's house? Why is there a portcullis there? What's in this stone basement? Is that portcullis keeping people out, or is it keeping something in? So maybe it's a clue that they are part of the cult and they have something terrible hidden within there. And it's a reason to sort of interrogate the noble person. Oh, and then one other fun little thing we did back here. So I'm going to pop these roofs off. Most of this is just standard building, but we have this section here. So this is 4x4 and a 2x2, 2x4. Then over here, it's just a regular 4x4. Instead of having this lined up flat either to there or here, I just offset it by 1 inch. So it makes a more interesting perimeter. It gives it an inch more space between these buildings, a little more playable space in here if you're trying to manipulate minis. It just kind of has the shape of the building just looks more interesting. So don't be afraid to offset stuff a little bit. Set it off by 1 inch, set it off by 1/2 inch, whatever it takes to make your buildings look not square, keep them interesting, keep those visual lines looking good. All right, let's go take a look at this tavern, our final building for this build. All right, so our final building is this big old tavern inn setup. So lots of fun things going on here. I don't know how we're going to approach it. We'll have to start from the top down. So this back section here is basically just a plain old 4x4, but by dressing up the front, it makes it plenty interesting and it doesn't feel boxy. So the first kind of fun gag we have is this room here. So I wanted to have a door and a window in the same wall. So I used 2x4s, bump, so I could use the narrow door and a narrow window, and then connect this fun little balcony. So it's a 2x2 floor using the scaffolding railings to make a fun balcony, right? And that's all biscuited together like this. Because I like little high balcony spots somewhere for the monk to go, the rogue to go, the ranger to go, interesting spots. Just makes it feel very playable. It's inviting to go up there. And then if you throw some roof perches around, it's really inviting to go up and play on the roof. Then below it, the fun thing we have going on is using this diagonal. So this is just sort of plain 4x4 with the bay window for a nice little overhang and open up that space, break that box a little bit. And then this section here, using the modular roof, we just used the cupola as a little spacer there. It could have been a 2x2 floor, but I was trying to use some variety. So we just biscuited the cupola to the back of these roofs to make one solid roof piece that could cover this front section. And then the balcony above sort of slid over it to kind of cover it up. But you could, if you left it exposed, you have a little trapdoor. It's a neat little way to do a extra little roof spacer if you need it. And then down below, we have this entrance area. So we're using the large rustic wood diagonal wall, putting the Tudor door in there to give it some Tudor flavor. I was trying to do a mix of Tudor and wood on this building to once again have variety. So that one's like all Tudor, this one's all wood. This was a mix of Tudor and wood, predominantly Tudor though. And then a couple of fun things we have here. So you have to use a little bit of theater of mind. So we have stairs here connecting up to this door here to sort of connect out to this other section rather than a door straight through, and I'll show you why in a sec. And then this connects you out to the rest of this section. But the fun bit we have here, so they're underneath, we're using the scaffolding diagonal there to fill up bottom. Fun here, once again, playing with the metal on these large. Again, a lot of money's worth out of these large diagonals, right? They're a great spot to add some decoration and some flair. Just sort of breaking up that square always, I don't know, it just tickles my brain in a nice way. So then going to the next section here, this section is, we're starting with the top. This is a 2x4, again, using a lot of 2x4s. And I didn't really build the insides well. I should have to swap that out for a door or whatever. So it's hard to actually get in here. You can get to the lower section, but this one, I didn't kind of build it out. This was mostly just cosmetic. I'd have to go back and sort of figure out how it works. But the fun thing is, so this walkway, so we'll pop this one off, boom, goes down to regular 4x4. Once again, I should have built, I didn't know exactly where the building was going. So I need to go back and sort of, if you're going to do interior play, go back and put appropriate doors for where it would connect. But the fun part with this is this whole thing is suspended on the same gag that we were doing over on that walkway, where it's 2 half arches and a cobblestone 2x2. But in this case, we have the lion portcullis arch in there, right? So the lion arch in there to make this fun, inviting archway into a like European style courtyard in the middle. And what I did was, so I offset this 1 inch back so that then this could offset 1 inch on the front and the back and give that really fun overhang feel that I'm always chasing, right? So we have that, and then it's further accentuated by the Oriole window here, bumping out. So that's giving some really kind of fun play on that staggered overhang look. And then inside here, I don't know if you can see this, but we'll pop that out. We have in the inner courtyard, we have a well. So they have their own little private water supply here. Feels like it's a fun little discovery when you go into the courtyard and there's something there. And of course, the well, Michelle sculpted in little handholds there down. So you could have it, there could be a secret cultist hideout in there if you want, or not. Could just be a well. And then this 4x8 section is all raised using the urban elevation. So this section of the building is offset by 25 millimeters. This one is standing on the floor, so it's up one floor height, so it's up about 11 millimeters. And you can sort of see it here. Then the rest of the building is built inline, so we have 3 different heights going on here. So we get a lot of interesting silhouette action. And this is, we'll leave it out, pop this open so we can see it. So the fun bit we did here was started with a 4x4, then went up to a 4x4 and a 2x4. So we have a 1-inch overhang on either side, and then go up one more to a pair of 4x4s. So we have another 1-inch overhang on either side. So it's a little top heavy, but when it's all built together, it kind of feels cohesive, and it gives us really nice kind of overhang on the front and that kind of medieval feel. And what this also accomplishes is there's plenty of playable space in there, but it feels claustrophobic because of the overhang. So you can still get minis all in this space, but it has that medieval feeling to it. And I think those are all the tricks we have on this building. So in summary, there are just a couple of things you need to remember, right? Lots of visual variants, right? To make the city feel interesting when you can. Do anything, offset stuff a little bit vertically or horizontally. To follow the narrative, right? Figure out what's the story behind each building, and that'll help when you're building it. It'll help you decide your choices, your creative choices can be driven by the story purpose of that building, right? So each one will help have an identity if there's a story behind why it's the way it is. And don't be afraid to use pieces in weird ways, upside down ways. There's no wrong way to use the pieces. Oh, and the most important one is have fun, right? If you're building to have a game, so have fun. You can feel it in the build. Like if you're having a good time with the build, you'll feel it in the final thing, right? Your players will feel it when it's on the table. You'll be excited. You'll be proud. It's going to be fun. So remember, the purpose of doing this is so you can tell a good story at the table, right? These are just narrative tools. So just embrace the story while you're doing it. Have a good time and tell a story. So hopefully this will have inspired you with some of the many ways you can combine the pieces of our City Builder collection, and maybe you'll have gleaned some advanced building techniques to take your urban planning to the next level. If you want to learn more about our cities collection, take a look at the cities playlist linked in the description below. And if you want to dive deeper, hop into our Discord, where we have an amazing community who would love to talk terrain with you. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like, a comment, and subscribe. It really does help us a lot. Thank you so much for watching. And now it's back to the anvil.